All right, we're going to give it about another 30 seconds. All right, thank you for joining us, everyone. Today, we are going to go over how to access financial scan features in GuideStar Pro. Plus, we're going to cover some additional benefits you'll receive now that we're transitioning you from the financial scan product over to GuideStar Pro. My name is Jesse Breaux, and I will be introducing our presenter here shortly. But before I do, I want to cover a few items. First, we will be recording this webinar and sending it out after. So if you have to run, or in case you miss anything or want to have a reference, you'll have this as a reference point moving forward. Second, you will be able to ask questions throughout this webinar. If you look at the Go to Webinar panel, there's a questions box. Please ask questions as they pop into your mind. You don't have to wait until the end. We'll be pausing briefly in the middle of this presentation for questions, and then if time permitting, we'll have some questions at the end too. Last but not least, there's me on the left. My name's Jesse Breaux again. I'm GuideStar's marketing manager, and I am here to introduce the star of the show today, Scott Menzel. He's our senior product manager, and he leads up all of our web products, including financial services in GuideStar Pro. He's really the expert here and in this domain. So with that said, I'm going to hand it over to you, Scott, and we'll let you get started on the live demo of GuideStar Pro.
Thanks, Jesse. Okay, hi everybody. I'm again Scott Menzel, the senior product manager for web products, and that includes things like Charity Check Pro and the product that currently exists as Financial Scan. As you all know, its functionality, which is really centered around conducting financial due diligence of nonprofit organizations, is being migrated into our Pro product. So what I'd like to do first in the demo is to show you where all of the financial scan functionality resides in Pro, and then take a deeper dive into some of the other features within Pro and Charity Check that you may not be aware of. So jumping right into it here, I'm just going to do a search for an organization. Click into what we call the organization profile page, and we'll go through all of this content in depth a little bit later, but again, we're right now just going to be focusing on the financial scan aspects and where they reside. So here is the financial trends analysis. This used to be known as the financial health dashboard. It's essentially the same. We worked in partnership with the Nonprofit Finance Fund. They had some minor changes in the way that they wanted to present data and the order of the data, and we've incorporated that into this new financial trends analysis. Now, note that as in Financial Scan, these metrics can only be generated for organizations that file on Forms 990. So that would exclude 990 PFs, EZs, and 990 Ns. For the nature of the private foundation, the PF data is so different that some of these metrics couldn't really even be calculated. EZs data and of course 990N data is not granular enough to calculate these metrics. So that's really the reason there. So just in walking through this, you'll notice that a lot of these, the metrics are pretty much the same. They've changed the order a little bit. We still have the explanatory text on hover for each. Also, just to note that the glossary of these terms and the formulas used to derive all of these metrics are available on this page. So just in case there's any question about how the formulas are calculated, they're all right here for your reference. So just moving through this, we've got profitability measures, revenue composition, just to kind of give you a sense of the distribution of sources of revenue, expense composition for pretty much the same, all in percentages. The estimated full costs is pretty much the same as it was in the original Financial Scan product. the liquidity, months of cash and investments, etc. Balance sheet composition here as well. Just kind of give you an idea of the balance sheet and the material data errors, where basically what we do is that we add up the component parts of some of the summary, like the summary revenue, the summary expenses, and if they don't match, then we'll indicate that with a yes down here in the key data checks area. So again, this is for those of you that were, especially power users, even maybe just casual users of Financial Scan, this is pretty much the same. The next thing I'd show you, the full report is available by clicking this button. And again, this is the PDF that many of you are probably familiar with that contains the financial trends analysis, the table that we just looked at, and also some associated charts and graphs for each, for each basically the focus metrics. So just looking through this, again, this is just the financial trends analysis in PDF format. And then a more granular breakdown or a graphic breakdown just to offer you some visuals about some of the key metrics displayed in the financial trends analysis. This is profitability over time, just unrestricted surplus before and after depreciation. You've got this narrative text here that, again, you should be familiar with if you've looked at the comprehensive PDF within the Financial Scan product. Revenue composition, expense composition, again with key questions here, and just some narrative on how you might want to interpret some of these graphs and data. Full cost, months of liquidity, and asset composition, liability composition, and net asset composition. So key indicators of an organization's financial health and sustainability. So that is available for obviously every organization for which a financial trends analysis is available, and you get there just by clicking this button. The other primary piece of Financial Scan that I'd like to show you is the peer analysis, which basically used to be known as the peer comparables analysis. So for that, we'll go to the search. I'm just going to do a search here that will, produce some kind of a cohort, right? So I'll let's go to Arizona, maybe select a couple of counties in Arizona. Let's go here, and we can select one or multiple NTEE codes. We could even select subcodes if we'd like within the educational institutions. I'll go over the search features and filtering functionality in more depth once I start talking more about Pro. You can select your subsection here. You can further filter by any number of other things here. Let's just select 990 filing type here, which would exclude PFs, EZs, Ns, etc. You could also filter by number of employees. Financials, you could come here and let's just say we want to organizations with at least 1 million in annual income. I'll get into this in a little bit further detail, but you can use these slider bars if you'd like, or if not, you can put in discrete values here, and you can use a K for thousands, an M for millions, and a B for billions, just to save yourselves from typing a lot of zeros. You could even do 1.5 million M in this if you'd like. So let's just apply that filter, and then we come up with a fairly tight cohort of 15 organizations. To add organizations to compare, you just select the Add to Peer Analysis link associated with each one of these results. Now again, because the peer analysis is based on the same metrics that are in the financial trends analysis, organizations for which we don't have digitized 990 are not really eligible to be added to the peer analysis. And in those cases, this link would not appear for those organizations. So as you add each one, they'll appear in this modal. You could close this if you want. If not, you can just keep it open. I'm just adding up to 5 organizations now. You know that they're in the peer analysis because these links change to then say view peer analysis. You can also view peer analysis by clicking this at the bottom. So this is the peer analysis table, basically. You're able to print it. There's a print style sheet with this. You can remove organizations from here. You could remove them from the peer analysis modal that is on the results page. And as you can see here, this analysis is built on the same metrics that the financial trends analysis is built. It's just the most recent year of data for each organization. Because of the length of some of the names, we just signify, the Cochise College Foundations with a 1 here, Flagstaff Bordertown 2. So that's how those organizations are represented in the column headers. And again, the most recent year is compared here for each organization, and the median is calculated for many of these. In some cases, the average is calculated because it's just a better indicator, and within revenue composition and percentages, the expense composition and balance sheet composition. So means here, medians here, and again, this is all the same data that is within the financial trends analysis. So that is, in a nutshell, the financial scan components that are going to be available on October 1st. There are 2 additional pieces that we're going to be developing very early in Q4. One of those is the ability to generate a peer group or cohort. So that will be worked on very early and will be released in Q4. And that and the ability to download both the financial trends analysis and the peer analysis in Excel will also be developed and available to Pro in early Q4. So with that, I do want to take a deeper dive into Pro, but I just want to kind of stop there. And Jesse, have there been any questions to this point?
Yeah, Scott, there was one question. Could you go back to the GuideStar profile and quickly show us where to get the PDF report for financial trends analysis?
Sure. So I'm going to skip right down to the financials area. And right here, this button will generate it. I'll go ahead and click that. Sometimes, depending upon the amount of data, etc., it could take just a couple of seconds here, which is why I had it open initially. But that's how it's accessed. Were there any other questions?
All right, no, that was it so far, Scott. I'd say if anyone thinks of any questions, please put them in the questions box. If not, Scott will go ahead and run through more features of GuideStar Pro, and we'll have a brief pause before we conclude to answer any more questions.
Great. Thanks, Jesse. Okay. So just in a large sense, what is Pro? Pro is a superset of most of the GuideStar products. It contains Charity Check, and now, as you know, it contains the financial scan functionality. So it's a product that provides tools for financial analysis, grant-making compliance, financial due diligence, and actually prospecting, really, for that matter. It primarily is based around its search engine. That's how you get to the meat of the data. So you can use this search engine and type in a name of an organization. Sorry. hit enter too fast there. Or you can actually enter an EIN if you know the EIN. For those of you familiar with the GuideStar search functionality, it'll accept either, right? So let's just put in one of those, and you can get straight to the matter. So you can find individual organizations pretty quickly. Search engine is pretty powerful within Pro, certainly a lot more powerful than it was within Financial Scan. So let's just go through a different sort of scenario now. Let's just say that instead of a singular organization, you want to do maybe a landscape analysis or do a peer analysis like I had demonstrated earlier. In that case, you want to generate some kind of a list of organizations, a list of similar organizations that you could then compare. So Pro has a pretty nice array of filtering capability. So you've got geography. I went through this a little, when I was demonstrating the financial scan. They've got organizational details here, and then you've got a wide array of financial filters here, expenses, revenue, and then assets. So let's just generate, like a list of like organizations, and then kind of take you through some of the features before we jump into the profile page. So let's pick some geography here. Let's go to New York. Let's go to Queens County. Let's go here, look for educational organizations. Let's say that we only want 501c3 public charities. Let's exclude revoked organizations. So this will exclude those organizations that have been revoked for failure to file. And there's tooltips throughout the search experience here that will clue you in on what each filter does. And then we'll exclude defunct or merged organizations. This just means that organizations that have not been on the IRS Business Master File within the past 6 months or the past 6 editions, it will exclude those. And again, since we're looking to generate a peer analysis, or let's just say that we're interested in 990 only organizations, we could further filter by that, and this would exclude PFs and Ns and EZs. And let's just go and add some financial. So let's go again, at least 1 million in revenue. Let's just go down here and look at one of these other ones. Let's just say at least 10K in accounting expenses. So you got a total of 43 here that are, organizations that are pretty much alike, at least according to the filters that we've chosen here. Now at this point, you could do a lot of different things. Generally speaking, I guess when you're doing searches for singular organizations, you won't really have a need to save the search. But when you're doing organizations with a lot more sophisticated criteria and filtering, you might want to do that. So you could do this, and then you could then execute a save search right from here. Again, if these are searches that you're going to do sort of regularly, this would be just a more convenient way, right, to get to the organizations that you care about the most. So we'll just execute that one really quick. And then the other thing that we want to do here is to show you just a couple of other things. You have the ability to save searches. You have the ability to save organizations as well. And then, sometimes grant makers like to do this, to save all of their grantees to a saved, organizations page, so they can easily run charity check reports on them. There's a variety of reasons why one might want to save organizations. So you're able to do this here. You're also able to do it from the profile page, and we'll get into that in just a second. The other thing that I'd like to show you on this page is you have the ability to download data for up to 5,000 organizations in your results set. So we're going to do this now. I just kind of want to show you how this works. we create these files asynchronously, so they're being generated, that list right now. So, and you'll receive an email, the email that you use to log in once that file is ready for download. Or you could go to the download queue here, and then you'll see at this point that this is the one I just chose, and it's still pending. It'll keep a count here of how many that you've already downloaded and how many you have left in a given month. It's 5,000 count per month for Pro users. This will give you a brief history of what you've already downloaded. And here's a list of all of the fields that are included in the download file. I'm not going to really open up the Excel file because we all know what Excel looks like, but you see, this is available. You can see all of the data that's available for download. We'll be adding fields to this in early 2019, and as Pro subscribers, please, if there's some piece of data that you'd like to see added to this, we'd like to certainly know about that, so we can get that on the roadmap and get it included. So this runs, this application that generates the files runs pretty much every 10 minutes. So you'll never have to wait any longer than 10 minutes to get to your file. That is mostly. And of course, the ability to compare, which we've already gone through, right? You have the ability to compare. Just want to say also that you can add individual organizations to your download queue if you so choose. So you don't have to download all of these. You can download, pick and choose which organizations you want to download. I'm going to pause there just to see, Jesse, just check in with you and see if there are any questions.
We do have a few questions, Scott. First question is, in the filtering function for NTEE codes,
yep,
can you type in, start typing instead of having to scroll down to select which code you're looking for?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you just start typing in E, and then it will take you to, or W. Yeah. So the answer is yes.
Okay, excellent. Next question was, can you customize the data fields that you want to include when you download data from GuideStar Pro?
Currently not. It gives you everything that was on that page, with the thought that you could just kind of delete the columns that you don't use. That said, I think that is that's not the first time I've heard that question. So I think it's functionality that we are certainly going to consider adding. And I think it would just be check boxes, right, on the download queue page so that users could do that. Yeah, and I would think that we might be able to do that at some point in 2019, Q2 or beyond.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Scott. It looks like we had a couple more come in while we were answering those first two. There's another question here. Can we download complete income statement and balance sheet data into an Excel format?
I will, yeah, and I will get to that here in just a second. It's most of it. It's the stuff. When I dive into the profile page, we will definitely demo that.
Cool. So last question here. Could you tell us the difference between a peer group and a cohort?
So I think it's not. There's going to be no material difference, right? It's currently called peer group functionality in Financial Scan. Right, we're going to call it Cohort in Pro, and I mean they are exactly the same thing. I mean it's a group of organizations that meet criteria that you specify in the search interface.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Scott. We'll let you finish up the rest of your demonstration.
Great. Okay, thanks. I'm going to demo our ability to search people here before I dive into the profile progression. So let's just, in order to get to the people functionality, you just click this down arrow here in the function. So, in some cases, users want to just search by name so that they, can establish connections between organizations. Oftentimes board members are board members of multiple organizations, and in order to maybe make a warm introduction, you could do a name search just to see if somebody that you know is with multiple organizations. So here is Bob Ottenhoff. He used to be our CEO, by the way. But so here are all of the instances of Bob Ottenhoff that are in our database. Now, you can see that we do a pretty good job with nicknames too. So Robert would be included in here. Rob would be included. Robert, etc. In this. So anyway, this is just kind of a nice way to get more information on people. Fortunately, at this point, each instance of the name that is associated with a different organization will display here. We don't have a way in the GuideStar database to uniquely identify people at this point, but that is certainly something that we'd like to get. We'd like to get there at some point. Just another quick example, if you put in Dave, you can just see this. So the guy that you're looking for is the CEO of the National Audubon Society, and it translates names, nicknames pretty well. The other thing that you're able to do here is that you don't have to enter a name. If you're just looking for, let's say, people within a certain position, let's say CFOs, for example. You can type in CFO, you could type in Chief Financial Officer, and then let's further whittle this down. Let's say that we're looking for CFOs that make at least $100,000 in salary, whose organizations have at least 20 million in revenue. And then, so you can see how you can whittle this list down. If therefore, if you want to also exclude like former employees, that's this is the responsibility field digitized from the Form 990. You can just hit, if you only want employees, highly compensated employees, or independent trustees, institutional trustees. You can select all of these except for former employee, so that you whittle the former employees out, as those are also, they're also reported on the Forms 990. Likewise, you can look for people within certain organizations. So if you are looking for, groups of people within organizations, let's say, I don't know, VPs within the Aspen Institute, you can do that. It's pretty flexible here, as you can see. And if you want to find all people within a given organization, really the best way to go with that is just put in an EIN here. Sorry. And then it'll give you, it'll positively identify everybody within a given EIN. Sometimes when you put in org names, there's org names that are similar, and it will give you, results outside of that or the specific organization that you're looking for. So that is People Search. We are looking to add download functionality to People Search again at some point in 2019. That's the plan, and even saved people functionality. Right now, you're just really able to save the search here. And this data comes from two sources. It'll either come from Form 990, or if we have people data that has been self-reported to us through our profile update program, that would also be listed here. So I'm going to pause there before we go into the profile demo, just to see if anybody has any questions.
Hey, Scott, we had one question pop up. It looks like a couple more coming through. In the nonprofit search, are you able to search or refine a search by a private foundation?
You could, yes. Let's go back to that really quick. You can I mean, if you hit the 990PF filter here, that would only return organizations that file on a 990PF.
Okay. And are you able to narrow down income or expenses after selecting that?
Yes. Yeah, you can add any of the, any of the fields. I mean, you can keep continuing to filter down as far as you'd like.
Okay, excellent. The next question is, if you click that little save star next to one of the results over there, where does it go?
Is it this? Oh, okay. All right, I gotcha. Let me do that really quick. And then where those are stored is in your saved organizations queue, right? So this is pretty much identical to the results page, right? Because even if you want to, like, one of the use cases for this is that if you want to save, you curate a list of organizations to download, you could easily do that using this functionality. And the other thing is then if you further wanted to filter down your saved organizations, all of these filters still apply to this. So this is where it lives. It's pretty much identical in experience to the results page.
Okay. All right. And in people search, is there a way to find contact information or filter by contact information, like email, address?
Not currently. Not currently. Now, for you can click through basically to any of these, right? And then you can get to a profile page, and if we happen to have contact information for them, it will be present. But I think that what we're going to probably do in the short term is add a filter that will either exclude people for whom we don't have contact information or something along the lines, so that you would know that in a given result set, everybody that is listed we had contact information for. You could then click through and get to that contact information on the profile page.
All right, Scott, no more questions so far. So if you want to get on to the next portion, go right ahead.
Great, thanks. Okay, so I'll keep it easy here, and I think that we'll just do a run through on the GuideStar profile. All right, so the GuideStar nonprofit profiles are kind of like the heart and soul of kind of what we do. This is usually the data that everybody that comes to GuideStar is after, whether it be the financial data, the operations data, etc. So these profiles exist for every organization in the IRS Business Master File. We also have defunct organizations that we keep on we have data available for just for research, historical research purposes. And we also have organizations that supply documentation directly to GuideStar as evidence of their exempt status. So that usually these are churches, which, as many of you know, are not required to file, although some do. So we have quite a few of those within GuideStar as well. The content available here on the profile pages is pretty extensive, especially for those organizations that supply data directly to us through the profile update program, and we'll go through some of that. So let's just kind of walk through here. The summary section is kind of the first thing. This is the charity check information, and I will go through this at the very end. This is basically just for IRS compliance for grant makers. So just taking a quick look at the summary section, you can see there's a variety of content here from various sources, and contact information was mentioned before. The only way that we'll have an email address is if a user supplied it directly to GuideStar through our profile update program, and we've got that for I want to say 40,000 plus organizations, I think maybe even 50. So that's where we'll have email information. We'll have phone numbers for every organization for which we have digitized 990, and 990PF, 990EZ, etc. So phone number is obviously a lot more, it's a lot more common to have. The other things within this section here, categorization type things like the NTEE code, the NAICS code and the SIC code, which we derive from the NTEE code, and then IRS subsection filing requirement. Here we have basically every digit, 990 PDF that we have in stock. So this includes those that are provided by the organization directly to us. And the main reason we have that is because sometimes organizations can provide those to GuideStar faster than we get them through the IRS. Also, 990Ts are available here, which have unrelated business income reporting. So we've got all the way back to usually around 1996 is when we started collecting these. Although organizations that have provided older ones than that will also have ones prior to 96. Social media, various social media links for those organizations that supply it to us. Top funding sources here, and that's basically the summary section, things that you would expect to see in the summary section. The programs and results, and this is kind of where we really kind of shine, because the data that's available here through the part 2 of the 990 is usually pretty bad, not really uniform. So when we have program data that is supplied directly from the nonprofit, we'll have it here. So there's sort of a problem statement. We've got details on each one of the programs that they give us, including the budget. And so, it can be quite extensive, which we have the expand and collapse links here. This is just a map of the service areas. As you know, GuideStar is primarily in the United States, but for those organizations that do work overseas, whether they provide grants overseas or else do some other kind of material support, you'll see this map filled out to where their service areas are. The next part here in the programs and results area, these are metrics that are supplied to GuideStar directly from the nonprofit. This is our so-called platinum level of transparency reporting for nonprofits, and this is where they provide us their results, right? So you can just kind of see here number of organizations you can find on GuideStar, and this goes back to as far as we've been able to really report on it. So other organizations, this might be number of meals fed to homeless shelter. You get the idea. So this just gives the nonprofit the ability to show what they've done and to provide some context. These are charting impact questions. So these are a lot of narrative here around what the organization's doing, how they're doing it, how they're making progress, what they have and haven't accomplished so far. These are just broader statements about an organization's impact and accomplishments. We also have other things here. If they've supplied us with photos, videos, etc., that is also within this programs and results area. Into the financials. Oh, also really quickly, if they've provided us through the Profile Update program with annual reports, we'll have those. If they've supplied us with other key organization documents, it's also available within that section. Moving on to the financials area, so we already looked at the financial trends analysis. Here is where we get into some more in-depth data visualizations. If an organization has provided us with audited financial statements, it's also here. They're required to do so to do that, to maintain a sort of what we call the silver level of transparency. And if these financials were audited, that's the indicator in the Form 990 that an organization has to check. It just says yes, these were audited by an independent accountant. So you get the idea there. So this is the sort of a long tail visualization of an organization's revenue and expenses, all from the Form 990. You can hover over and see the values change, or you can use the slider bar here. You can also go right in and you can look at the trend line and various other components. This just kind of gives you a good sort of a long tail picture, right, of an organization's finances. Here we've got, just some high level metrics, the, fringe benefit rate, the months of cash over 10 years, liquidity, and the average over 10 years. And these are also taken from the Form 990. This is also Form 990, the funding sources. This just kind of gives you a better idea of changes in funding sources over time. GuideStar used to be basically we got most of our revenue from grants, and then you can kind of see here things started to change over the years where our program service revenue started to surpass our grant revenue. Here we just have a long tail of assets versus liabilities. And then for those that like to look at tables, we've got revenue and expenses here, and you can look at it for multiple years. Here is where you can download this. And the download functionality here is for the 5 most recent years is what you'll get in an Excel file for the data that's displayed within these tables. So we've got the revenue and expenses here. We've got the balance sheet here, beginning of year, end of year, and then the change. And that's also downloadable. So, all at your disposal. Financial trends analysis will also be downloadable probably early next quarter, early in Q4. So that's the financials section. I should pause there, I think, before I go and round out the operations section. Jesse, are there some questions to this point?
No, we don't have any questions so far, Scott. You can go ahead and continue on.
Well, good, great. So operations, it's primarily about the people, governance, etc. Of an organization. This is where you can download a letter of determination if an organization has provided it to us. Also, their formation document, their 1023, 1024, if we have it, is also located here. Here's a leadership bio with a link to their LinkedIn profile. This is a number of employees over time for as long as we've digitized it from organizations 990. Here we have the officers, directors, trustees, key employees. You're also able to download this for the 5 most recent years. This also shows compensation from the organization, other and related organizations. Here we have the highest paid employees per fiscal year. So you can also see the comp from the org, other and related. And then here's the board of directors, the most recent board of directors, as self-reported by the organization. This is of some interest to grant makers, as they'll often request a list of the most recent, the current board of directors from potential grantees. So you also have the ability to download the most recent year of board members and via this button. Below that, we have some board leadership practices. Again, this is all supplied, self-reported by the organization through the profile update program, and that just gives you some pretty simple yes/no questions to some overarching ways in which boards are evaluated, and overall governance of the organization. So that's there. Below this, again, this is self-reported by the organization, and this will show you the DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion data for the organization. So you'll have these mouse overs here will show you what percentage, and here's the key over here: race and ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation. In some cases, organizations can just tell us that they don't collect that information, and that's what we put, that's what we insert here in the messaging, and the disability. And then they indicate their diversity strategies also in self-reported information, and that's reflected here. Last but not least, we have up to the top 5 funders, not funders, I'm sorry, contractors per fiscal year. So this is 2016, and we just give the name of the organization, their address, and the level of compensation that were paid to them, and the type of service also. So you can see that for every year for which we have digitized it. So that is pretty much it for the profile page. I want to briefly go over the charity check report, but before doing that, just once again, just wanted to ask just to make sure if anybody had any questions.
We're all clear, Scott. No questions?
Great. I think that I can run through the charity check stuff pretty quickly. Basically, it's for grant making due diligence, right? Grant makers need to know certain things, and I'm sure we have some grant makers on the call today. But this is whether or not the Pub 78 is if the contributions to this given organization are tax deductible. They need to know that. They also need to know the 509A status of a given organization through the IRS Business Master File, the BMF. And this is a PDF of the compliance document, the charity check compliance document. So that is really it, more or less. The one feature that is not quite as well known is the watch list feature and the ability to receive alerts for these organizations based on various charity check events. So let me just run through that briefly. I've already configured mine. If I hadn't, none of these would be checked. But these, so the first step here is just, is basically, telling GuideStar which alerts you would like to receive for a given organization. And these alerts are based on your watched organizations, and I'll get into that in just one second. But these are all the alerts that are available. So if an organization had some status revocation, and there's tooltips here too that explain each one of these, or if an organization was excluded from the Pub 78 data, if an organization was not in the Business Master File, if it had a change in nonprofit status, a change in subsection code 509A status, OFAC, specially designated national, that's the terror watch list, basically, and any kind of other exempt status revocation, you could receive alerts for those organizations. Now, you can add individual organizations to your watch list, either from the profile page of the organization. I had already added GuideStar, so that's why it says remove there. Or you can manage it in a separate way by going to the Managed Watched Organizations list. And if you would prefer just to upload a CSV or some kind of delimited file with EINs, you could do that here, and it would automatically add those organizations to your watch list. Also, you could add a list of EINs separated by commas and add those as well to your watch list, and they would automatically comprise your watch list. So that's pretty much it for Charity Check, and pretty much it for the webinar. Once again, Jesse, just want to check in and see if anybody had any questions.
It doesn't look like it, Scott, so if you've got anything else you want to cover, if not, I think this concludes our presentation today. Oh, wait, there was one question about, is it available, or is it possible for the visuals in the financial section in a profile to be downloaded?
We're working on that. We are working on that functionality. It doesn't currently exist, but I please, if whoever is asking that question could email me, and I don't know if our email addresses are on some page of the presentation or not, Jesse, but I would really like to talk to you about that, because we've had that request before, but I'd really like to dig into the specific requirements that you have for it. So the answer is, yeah.
I'm going to share the screen with our email addresses on there.
Great.
So if you're able to email Scott, feel free to do so.
All right. Yep. And that's, yeah, so that's great. And please, anybody on this webinar that has questions, or if questions occur to you afterwards, or feature requests for that matter, I am one of those product managers that always likes to hear from customers and users. So please, by all means, send me an email. And I think that will just about do it, Jesse.
All right. Thanks so much, Scott, for going through financial scan features in GuideStar Pro and the additional benefits as well. And thank you all for showing up today. We hope you enjoyed this and had all of your questions answered. And with that, I will conclude this webinar.
Thank you all.
Bye, everybody.